To the internet?
Yeah, this V Suites is the code. The password is right down in the.
Oh, okay.
This thing is cool, man. I got this fucking thing.
You ready, Lex?
Imitation smoke going?
Yeah, like the vapor. I can smoke on the fucking plane now.
Oh, you still with the cigarette? You still doing it?
He's been quitting for a minute now.
Oh, okay.
It seems like it's increased.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is 4th&Goal TV with Lexington Steele and Andre Lavelle and John E. Depp. Gentlemen, there's so much to talk about tonight as we launch into this night here on 4th&Goal TV. I certainly would impress upon our listeners and our viewers to give us a call at 661-312-8580 as we emerge into the show, coming off of the hot tunes of K West Dirty. That's K West Dirty with the song Miracle, bringing us into live studio tonight. We are talking about sports, guys. What's going on tonight, fellas?
Not much, man. What's happening with you?
Oh my God! You know what? I could say a million things, but we only have an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make the announcement that we will be moving to 2 hours of programming for your listening and viewing pleasure.
Yes,
as we introduce Man Cave Sports Talk to the online TV platforms, ladies and gentlemen. So, without further ado, it is indeed July 29th, and a lot of things have been happening in the sports world. JD, first and foremost, as we all can agree upon, one of the gentlemen that we, of course, look up to collectively, as well as seek to emulate, one Stephen A. Smith of ESPN and of 98.7 FM on the radio dial out of New York, Philadelphia native, certainly enough one of the main men inside of
correction, my brother. Hollis, Queens native.
Hollis, Queens.
He worked for the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Well, I'm saying, he cut his teeth in Philadelphia, and of course, before he emerged onto television,
True.
He was a beat writer in Philadelphia. Now, as we, look at what's taking place with Baltimore Ravens Ray Rice, the Roger Goodell of the NFL commissioner lays down a 2-game suspension, as we know. Now the question lies. None of us obviously have seen the tapes that were in the elevator, on the inside of the elevator. We saw what happened when he
seen him being dragged out.
Literally was dragging his then fiance out of the elevator. Subsequent to that, he has pled not guilty to 3rd-degree charge of aggravated assault.
Did she marry him though?
She did go into marry.
There you go. So.
And then actually, when they did have their court appearance, she went in and spoke on behalf of her husband that they have went on to become married, and that she, in some ways, took part in whatever led up to that unfortunate incident that we don't know because the elevator door was closed. So we don't know what the elevator security saw or what the cops saw. So he pleads not guilty, 3rd-degree aggravated charge of aggravated assault, accepted a plea trial intervention program which he began in May. Subsequent to that, and you know what, gentlemen, before we go into Stephen A. Smith, as we lead into that, I will make one quick point. Are you guys familiar with Jim Irsay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Jim Irsay,
Indianapolis Colts owner.
the Colts owner, Now let's look at this very, very quickly, people, and I encourage you to give us a call here at 661-312-8580. Jim Irsay, last year, right, was pulled. As a matter of fact, I have the exact date. He was pulled over, and he was caught with a number of prescription drugs, which may mean less or more depending on who you ask, right? But
Still doesn't look good though.
No, drunk driving.
Right.
And it's not his first time.
Was no, it was not his first time. As a matter of fact, he was driving on a suspended license. 2 counts of misdemeanor impaired driving. License was suspended at the time. Interestingly enough, Roger Goodell, who of course we just laid down the law, 2-game suspension of Ray Rice.
Yep.
Now Irsay, the owner of the Colts, was arrested on March 16th, and he has yet to be penalized, or the authority of Roger Goodell, NFL commissioner, has yet to fall upon Jim Irsay. So I don't know. Are we looking at it? Is there a dichotomy in the issuance?
Tasty right there, brother.
Certainly enough. Does this beg the question?
It's a double standard.
Double standard differentials in the allocation
It's definitely a double standard.
of law.
But you're looking at owner and you're looking at running back.
Right.
You make the call.
It almost brings us back. Do we look at it does it force us to look back at the reality that professional sports has replaced a plantation economy. The economics of the plantation economy easily can be transplanted into this circumstance. And the reason why I bring this up, there's another point that we can get into along the same lines in terms of the ownership, and the players.
Yes, sir.
Now this is a case where the governor of the league chooses to not penalize the owner of one of the squads. Now some will argue that an owner of a professional team is in fact de facto the boss of a commissioner of the league. That the commissioner indeed works, is an employee of all the owners.
Yes, he works for the owners. Exactly.
So can an employee in any way penalize a person in an authority figure in terms of position?
Well, in this case, it doesn't look so because he hasn't done anything.
He has
he
yet to issue any type of definitive.
not even a smack on the wrist or anything.
And this took place March 16th.
2013, correct?
This year.
But still, that's like how many months?
Well, you know what? You might be right, JD. It might be.
I think it was last year.
Michael, do you have any information as to the correct? Is that 2013 or 2014?
I believe it was 13.
So
wow.
it was
like
some time ago.
Yeah, I think it was some time ago.
Change.
But just even going back to the statement when you're talking about can a commissioner take playing on the owner, but then that's just happening in the NBA. Then the NBA slap something down on Sterling. Now, if the commissioners do work for the owners,
right?
That's going to say the same thing. Can the owners be disciplined?
Well,
and in the NBA,
and who can do effectively?
Right.
I think with the Sterling case, it was just like he put himself out there. I mean, the things he was saying. So I think the commissioner of the NBA had so much pressure on him to do something that he had to do something.
And act swiftly.
Exactly. Now, with the Indianapolis Colts owner, I mean, hey,
It's a good old boy.
Good old boy.
Right, but Irsay evidently has a track record to some degree in terms of operating outside of the law, so to speak.
True.
And any reprimands that should come down from Goodell, however swift as they have been in regards to Ray Rice, have not been afforded such with Jim Irsay.
And also adding on to that, Lex, too, the receiver for the Cleveland Browns was just penalized for drunk driving.
Right.
What's his name, Mike?
I think Gordon was it?
Gordon, right.
Gordon,
He
yes.
plans to contest that, I understand.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I believe he was suspended
He
4
was.
games.
He was suspended.
4?
4
Yeah.
games.
So they laid the law down on him. See, that's really, really interesting, and it begs the question. I'm going to bring another point. I'm going to bring in something else real quick to introduce to the floor, to the table. Major League Baseball. This past weekend we saw the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies.
Okay.
A number of well-deserving gentlemen have been inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. I've been there myself as a child. Point being, Tony La Russa, fabled manager, well deserving of Hall of Fame tenure and reception, was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Now, when he was cutting his teeth, if you will, becoming the Hall of Fame manager that he is today, he includes in his career a period of time in which he managed the Oakland A's. On that team of Oakland A's, there were two individuals, one being Jose Canseco, the other being Mark McGwire. Collectively, they call themselves the Bash Brothers.
The steroid crew.
Okay, now that one, certainly coining the term "chicks dig the long ball." We remember that term, right?
Wow.
That was based on the home run hitting.
So,
the pardon the pun. Present company included, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so we know that chicks do love the long ball, courtesy of JD, who appears courtesy of
Formula R3.
Now tell what.
Rock and Restore.
And before we get any further,
all natural sexual enhancement for men.
so you know about chicks loving the long ball. I mean, you're making a business out of it.
Hey, you know what I gotta do, man. Yeah, that's what it's about.
Matter of fact,
you yourself also know about the
I
long
certainly
ball,
do,
too.
but where can people catch your product if they want to?
Oh, you can go to www.formular3.com for Formula R3.
There it is,
all
people.
natural sexual enhancement for you.
Okay,
And
now,
I'm going to try it out, and I will let you know.
As a matter of fact, I may have one for you, my brother.
I look forward to it.
you know, with the other day, I was actually I was trying an all natural product from an Eastern medicine store called Long Jack, and I was telling Andre that I was trying out this new product called Long Jack, and he was like, oh, and I told him how well it's been working for me. He was like, can I have something? I was like, no, my brother. You've got to get yours for yourself.
Exactly.
And so for those people back in the day that remember that commercial,
Right.
we might be a little, too old for people. They may not remember that commercial, but just a little side there. You know what I'm saying? But, you know what I'm saying? The reason why that we talk about this is because when we bring up the Bass Brothers, Canseco and McGwire, neither of these individuals perhaps may never get into the Hall of Fame, despite the fact that their numbers warrant induction and inclusion. The point being, the individuals that facilitated La Russa's rise to Hall of Fame caliber manager, the individuals that were the horses, he was a cowboy riding on these horses. Now, if the jockey gets in the Hall of Fame,
talk about it.
Is it not a problem that the racehorses are not inducted and, of course, in positions outside of inclusion, perhaps for eternity? It begs a question.
Double standard.
Is there a continual double standard, if not a dichotomy, in the way that these things are governed, in the way that people in positions of authority in professional sports are dealt with? You know what I'm saying? Suffice it to say, I'm one of the people that do believe that there should be no asterisk next to people being inducted into Major League Hall of Fame, because you don't know all of whom may have been using performance-enhancing drugs. Now, obviously, in baseball, you're going back into the 70s with the greenies, which were 100% ephedrine. They were, when you talk about pill popping in the 70s and 80s, well, 70s was greenies, 80s we saw cocaine, 90s and beyond we see performance-enhancing drugs. Right. But begging the question, whether it's greenies or whether it's cocaine, we're still talking about performance-enhancing drugs, right? Sure. So if you're Pete Rose, if you're George Brett, if you're any of those players that were supposed people that maybe use greenies, if not cocaine, I'm not making that suggestion, but from a different era to today's era, those people from back in the day were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Okay, if you go back to old-time baseball, men drank heavily before they played baseball. That would be considered somewhat of a performance-enhancing in some way or another. So the presence of performance-enhancing drugs in professional sports has been something that has fueled, if not driven, the popularity and of professional sports historically.
Well, everybody's looking for an edge. Nobody's on the straight up. I mean, I guess if you work at that level, I mean, your body can only stand but so much. As you know, as entertainers yourself, Lex, I mean, hey, that's hard work, no pun
Right.
intended. You
Right.
know, but your body can only take but so much. But you know, these guys are trying to find an edge, man. And you know, I mean, am I for it? Not really, you know, because you got some guys that do it on the straight up. But I don't know, man. It's touchy.
Well, okay. Early in the week, there has been some discussions as to whether or not the NFL will begin administering testing for human growth hormone. Okay, now evidently they don't test for HGH at this point. They're testing for a number of other performance-enhancing drugs. Now I don't know, Andre. You can allude to this. What is the situation within MMA regarding performance-enhancing drugs?
They are banned.
All of them?
As far as I know, they test for quite a few things. The list is growing weekly. Dana White wants to clean it up. He doesn't really want the freak show, and it's about the talent and the skill of the individual.
Well, let me ask you gentlemen this. You know, are we on a slippery slope when there is a distinction between steroids and a distinction between testosterone and a further distinction where we consider human growth hormone?
It's
all
drug.
performance enhancing.
Yeah.
But one can argue from a medical standpoint that HGH may or may not need be connected to steroids per se, whether it's clenbuterol or any of the other very, very powerful performance enhancers that have been labeled steroid. Now, obviously, testosterone supplementation,
Right.
whether administered by a doctor or taken by way of supplements that can be found in Vitamin Shop or GNC, these things are still on the fence. But whether or not HGH is the testing for HGH begins in the NFL could the NFL afford to have such a sea change? Whereas if you have these athletes no longer taking HGH, will we see a market discount in the product? Will the product suffer in any way, shape, or form, discernible to the fan base?
Well, I think if you look at bodybuilding, for example,
Right.
you know, you had these huge monstrosities,
Right.